Well, on today's episode, we have the Echoing Green all the way from America. Exciting. We have Wil, Chrissy, and Joey. Let's say hello to them. Hey guys, how you
Hi.
doing?
Hey, how
Hi,
you doing?
guys.
And here we also have DJ Rocket, part of the interview today as well. So welcome aboard, everyone. It's so exciting to have you on the show.
Thanks for
And-
having us. I know you worked hard to set this up, and such an insane time difference
It is,
over
yes.
there. Like I had to try to use a calculator to figure it out. Just to, yeah.
Yeah, so it's good morning from Australia and good afternoon in America, I believe.
Yeah, you're full on in the future. You're like
I am, yeah.
are living in tomorrow, and we're still in yesterday.
Yeah, so let me know where you guys are calling from.
I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, so I'm a couple hours ahead to these guys.
And we're in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
So why don't you guys introduce yourselves and let me know about what you do in Echoing Green?
I help put together some music and stuff like that. Joey and I usually get together and do a lot of the sounds and the electronics and really kind of bounce stuff off each other. He won't let me sing. That's not my thing, even though I really want to.
Yeah.
But I totally understand why, because if you heard my voice, it's not worth it. But really just putting together the songs and kind of bouncing ideas back off each other and being each other's biggest critics. I think you said one time that I helped take it the rest of the way. Like you write all the stuff with Chrissy and do all the pretty stuff and that sort of thing, and then I'm some of the critical end part that puts things together. But then I'm also kind of the visual guy too. Like I did the album cover. I'm a photographer in real life and a graphic designer in real life, and so try to bring a lot of that look to the vibe as well. And then I play.
When you're actually playing in the band, what would you play?
Keyboards, yeah.
Keyboards. Nice.
And dance terribly.
And dance terribly. Well, we all need that. Chrissy, what do you do in the group?
Well, besides being the band mom, I guess, I help Joey do a lot of the writing. I do a lot of the harmonies, writing the harmonies. I just do a lot of the creative end with Joey on the front end of the songs, I guess. Occasionally he'll let me like play a drum pad or like a keyboard or something. Yeah, just play on the laptop and dance around and sing.
Okay, you know what? Let me embellish a little bit, because these guys are like being super humble. But so Wil is like you said, he's the ultimate like sounding board. Even if he doesn't, sometimes we've had really funny, not arguments, but funny conversations where he is not explaining something to me technically, but yet he explains it with like feel. He's like, I don't know, it just doesn't have this like, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. And a lot of times I don't want to hear what he says. And then the next day I'm like, you were right. And so he really is a good navigator and like a barometer for where the songs go. And but he's mean with like a 303 and bass lines, and he is eternally the one that wants to make things crunchier, more aggressive, more things like that, which is awesome, because it's really easy to make things like super pretty all the time, and so a lot of the aggression or the aggressive sounds can be attributed to Wil. And then Chrissy doesn't just come up with harmonies for her to sing, she comes up with the harmonies for me to sing, and we'll bounce a lot off of each other. But she's like an insane like arranger and vocal like arranger. So if you listen to our stuff, and I mean, I feel like the harmonies are pretty I can tell you they're very thought out, but I feel like we pulled off something special. But a lot of times probably nobody's listening that hard. But if you've ever noticed the vocals, if you ever noticed any great melodies, they're not that typical third or fifth above, and that's definitely on purpose, and that's because of her. And she also records me. And so if I was there to record myself, I would let a lot of like crappier things fly, and I wouldn't know, because I'm like, what? That was great. And she's like, no. So she's not just a band mom. She's definitely like helps produce and record the things. And I'm Joey, and I am the main writer and producer, but it's definitely become over the years more of a collaborative effort. I usually just kind of get the spark going, or I'll get like the bones of something together, but they'll help me flesh it out, as well as we don't have Dave and Johnny on the line, but Dave's a drummer and Johnny's our guitar player, and they both contribute quite a bit as well. So I write, I painstake over a lot of the lyrics, but a lot of times it's right here with Chrissy, so she's just as much in it, and she'll be like, no, that's stupid, or no, and she's like, well, what about this? And she'll have like thesauruses and rhyming dictionaries and all kinds of stuff up. She's like, there's gotta be a better way to say that. So yeah, she's definitely up in it.
It's a dark and lonely winter. You say this house never felt so cold, yet there's the faintest smell of cinders and of truth yet to be told, and a sound surrounds your secret, something I've heard but can't yet see, like whispers in the twilight, the secret now revealed to me. It's a flame burning just behind your eyes. I'm praying for rain, but nothing will put out these fires that burn and blaze. Wait, let's not forsake all these years if you just stay. There's so much truth still to hear, and I'll listen all night to your hopes and every fear. I won't say it's alright, these things always end in tears. Ooh, you're fanning the flame, and everything is catching fire. The things that you hate, and everything that you desire. One insane, running to escape this fire and cover the shame, hiding just behind your eyes, the green and gray.
We turn with hearts on fire. We feel it inside. We're stealing to die. To burn what we conspire. We cast it aside to keep us alive. We turn with hearts on fire. We feel it inside. We're stealing to die. To burn what we conspire. We cast it aside to keep
There's
us
a flame
Turn with hearts on fire.
There's things that you hate,
We conspire. We cast it aside.
the tears that you taste.
With hearts on fire.
We burn it away.
We conspire. We cast it aside.
Ooh, you're fanning the flame. There's
Well, I'd love to know how the Echoing Green started.
A really long time ago. I had started the thing on my own, and I signed a record label to a record deal and did a demo or did a record with this record label that was with this guy who was buddies with Wil, actually, and the record label like fell apart after I finished the record. So I was like, oh, that was really exciting. I got signed I was only a year into college, and I got signed, and then I did a record, and then it didn't come out, and then the record label was gone. So I was like, oh, that wasn't fun. And then one day, like maybe a year or two later, I walked into a record store, and they were like, hey, your record's coming out on this label. And I was like, what? I had heard of that label, but I was like, how's that possible? Nobody's talked to me. So I called the record label in California, and they're like, oh my gosh, we've been trying to get a hold of you. Turns out the guy who owned the old record label sold all the masters to this other label, and they were going to release it. So I was like this step kid luggage who came over to the Mix Records, but they were excited. And so it started off just kind of me in the studio. I worked with Ronnie Martin of Joy Electric on that very first album, which is really painful to listen to those older records. But it wasn't until I got going and trying to figure out what it meant to have a liver sound that I started bringing in other players to play along. And then Chrissy, I've known since she was a little girl, since she was in junior high. So she truly is like my little sister. And there was a gig that we were like in Utah. Mm-hmm. We went to Utah.
It was a lock-in.
We went to Utah to go play, and I was like, Chrissy was singing in a band.
Sea of Glass.
Sea of Glass is the name of her band. And she was just in high school singing in a band, or were you just out?
I was in high school.
Okay, yeah, okay. And so I was like, hey, Chrissy, would you want to come fill in and to sing some backups, And we went and played this show, and it was really, really fun. And she sent me do you remember? You sent me a letter in the mail. She sent me a letter in the mail and was just telling me like what a good time she had and how it was just so wonderful. And that was the first time I had really entertained like, wow, this would be really great if it wasn't just me with like side players here and there, like just like hired hands, And then so Chrissy came on board, and then I started writing stuff, and I think it was Thief was the first track where I actually turned over some of the lead vocal reins for the first time, and we had this like great give and take of some female lead, which was really, really nice. And so I don't know, she just kind of she was part of my family, and it became, she became part of the band. So it was very organic the way it happened. I wish I could say it was just this and this, but it was a long time of me like mucking around, lost and aimless, until I bumped into like good folks,
Yeah, one of my first shows was our live recording at Tompus.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't know all the words to all the songs.
Oh.
I had a music stand with the lyrics on it just in case, and it was recorded.
So we wound up playing. So in America, we Wil. I ran into Wil at one of the music festivals that we started to frequent and play every summer. So in America, especially in the late '90s, there was like a lot of big hard rock and alternative kind of music festivals that would happen in various parts of the country. And so Wil was always at this one in Chicago called Cornerstone, and or outside of Chicago. And he had known my band, and he had a band called Shelter Shed. And they would always stick us, because there was a lot of like punk and hardcore bands, and we would get stuck on like the late night rave tent, because they didn't, it's like where they threw anything electronic. We were called techno for so long. But yeah, so I met Wil just as a friend, and then it just made sense for us to come together as Shelter Shed kind of transitioned, and I was like, dude, you're pretty much in our band, why don't you just be in the band?
Yeah, and I wasn't a techno band,
He wasn't very much. And then Chrissy was all up in it, like dancing. She was at all the raves, at all that crazy stuff, with her cute little hair and her crazy big baggy jeans, and was like dancing it up. And so to bring her element, she was truly like this rock and roll but girl who wasn't afraid to dance, but not in a choreographed kind of way, and so she just brought this energy to the live show that was just really, really great from all that.
Echoing Green, how did that name came about? Where did that idea come from?
It was a poem from William Blake, and also a really good song from Cause and Effect. A lot of people thought that the name was from Cause and Effect. It was actually from the same place they got the name. It was a poem from this poet named William Blake, and I really just thought it had a nice charm to it. And the idea was that the Echoing Green was a place where life happened, where people were alive, and that's what kind of always I envisioned it.
And so let's dive into your songwriting process. How does a song kind of come about? Do you create a beat, write the music first, or do you kind of start with lyrics and build from there?
I would say that usually Joey's got some sort of idea of melody in his head, or most of the time it comes together first because he's got scraps of songs, like just little snippets of songs that will grow into a much bigger idea. And then once we get a good chunk of it, we'll just sit in the studio for hours on repeat and just go through lyrics and kind of fill in some melodies, and then once we get that idea, we'll usually throw some scrap recordings together just so we get an idea, so we can take it home and listen to it a little bit and see what we like and don't like. And then usually Joey will keep working on it on his own, because I don't get up here as often as I used to.
So to attack the question a little bit more specifically, James, we'll write the music first.
Yeah.
Always.
Most of the time.
Sometimes
there's melodies involved first.
Yeah, or not, but I mean, not usually like a lyric first, right? I mean, sometimes we'll stumble across like what would make a great title for a song. Like Supernova is a great example of, we knew the name of it before we wrote it, and we were like, we got to write something that matches its name. And we'll have like the scraps kind of arranged. Like I'll have a verse and a chorus, and like maybe even a bridge, and I'll make it repeat. And then I'll send a copy to Will, I'll send a copy to Chrissy. And then I'll usually get in the car or go someplace initially and sing along to it with just phonetics. So I'll just make up like nonsense words, like and I'll sing along like la la la's, but just we'll find the melodies first.
Yeah.
And so that makes it a little bit tougher, because then it's like, well, we have this cadence and this melody, and we need to make some clever lyric that fit this, as opposed to like, well, there's these great lyrics, now make it work to this song. No, this song kind of decides. So the song decides the mood of it, the song decides where you want to go with it, and it's usually like humming around nonsense melodies that start to like flesh out, is how we do that.
Awesome. So we have Will in your group, and for us Aussies, because this show is made in Australia, Melbourne, I've actually found out Will is originally from Melbourne.
Yes, I am.
Now tell us about how you transitioned from Melbourne to where you are now.
Well, I grew up in the western suburbs of Melbourne in Sunshine, and anyone that's from that area knows it, especially in the 80s and 90s, it was kind of a rougher area. And still kind of is. And so I grew up with a lot of 80s and 90s Australian electronic bands, Pseudo Echo, Kids in the Kitchen, Wawani, I mean, you name it. I was fully in the height of that era. And it's so funny because like, I will talk about some of those bands to Americans and they'll be like, oh yeah, Pseudo Echo, Funky Town. And I'm like, dude, there was a chapter where they were completely different than what is perceived outside of the US. And even so now, I mean, they're still rocking. They're still kind of going.
Well, funny enough, I've seen them 3 times in the last 2 years.
Oh yeah, I was in Australia a year ago and I went and saw them, and wouldn't have missed it. But so I wanted to do something musically. I was a DJ and used to hang out at like Central Station Records and go to all of the clubs, growing up and that sort of stuff. And I really had my eyes set on the US, and because the DJ market was bigger over here, and we had Chicago house and Detroit techno and all that sort of stuff. And so for me, it made sense. And I kind of bribed my parents that I would do better in school if they could find a way to get me into a US college. And so I got into a school in Indiana, which is right in the hub. So you have Cleveland, which had everything like 9 Inch Nails and all that coming out of it. You had Detroit, which had all of the Detroit techno. And then you had Chicago that had like, Chicago house, but then later on all of like this industrial stuff that kind of happened. And so that's where I kind of wanted to be, and came over here and did mediocre at school and really focused on trying to be in music. And it's how I met Joey, and I was a huge fan of the things he did or other bands like that, because there was a whole side of me that was into like synth pop, bands like Anything Box, of course Depeche Mode, all that sort of stuff of the 90s, and really kind of connected with what Joey was doing. And I don't think you realize how big of a fanboy I was before, we actually became friends. I would get all like super embarrassed and awkward and, shy and all that sort of stuff. And even with you, Chrissy, when I first met you, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like, and it was funny because you don't remember this, but there was a time that I was with like Dataphobia, and you guys had played, and I think Dataphobia had come and watched you guys, and you were like, oh my gosh, the lead singer from Dataphobia, but all the whole time I was like, oh my gosh, there's that Echoing Green, kind of thing. And so that kind of stuck out in my mind. But I ended up staying, I ended up getting married, and it's where I live now. I'm a photographer full-time and a graphic designer, and help these guys do noise.
Ever gonna kill your disguise? The breath behind the lines. Will I ever see the whites of your eyes? And in the twilight, you fall apart. Oh, it's such a sad, sad sight. The touch of dissonance and demise. Like radio waves, you pass me by. Takes your thoughts on the line. Your solid style, it's all pretend. Sinking in sentiments sublime. All of your truths are laced with lies. Your violet smile kisses red like revenge.
Now, the funny thing is, me being an electronic artist, a lot of people at my shows would say to me, have you heard of these guys? And so in my mid-20s, I was doing a gig and someone said to me, have you heard of the Echoing Green? And I was like, Oh no, and me growing up in the Christian music industry as well, there's not many artists in that genre, and I was just like, oh, that's awesome. Like, you know, I've grew up listening to Andy Hunter as well, and and Joy Electric I've listened to a little bit as well, and so I was like, oh, I've got to check them out. And so as soon as I kind of started listening to it, I was an instant fan, and have been for probably the past 12 years.
Oh wow!
And you know, you guys have actually been an inspiration to my songwriting. I remember listening to this album quite a lot, and this was probably one of the first ones that I listened to. And good news, something landed on my doorstep last night.
What?
And
yes!
just like perfect timing.
Oh man!
And I'm just like going, what are the chances? So for those guys that are watching the show, this is Echoing Green's latest vinyl release. And I'd love you guys to tell me about it. Why have you released this? What is it all about?
Oh, it's so nice to see someone else hold it. It's still new to us, you know?
Yeah.
I'm so glad you got it. Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, all the way.
We put that together mainly to Chrissy really can be gets to hold the award, the medal for kind of reawakening the Echoing Green, because we had just been pursuing. We all had life stuff happen, and you know we transitioned, families, kids, things like that. And so Chrissy was the one who kind of started dragging me back into social media and like, we should do this. And so before COVID, we were really kind of just planning on doing a Kickstarter, because we found that a lot of people were interested in the idea that we were people that were kids when we toured years ago now are adults, have kids, and they talk about music with their kids, and they're actually very excited, you know. And so Chrissy got us back going, and then and so we were all set to go, and then the world went upside down. And so I was a big I had become, and Will has always been, but I had become kind of a vinyl nerd, and then Will's had the addiction forever, and he's got like a massive collection, and he buys records like again over, even though he's like, oh, this record can't just sit here, I've got to get it and snatch it up. He's like the Mother Teresa of good records.
So true.
You know, and so anyway, I thought that, like, well, you know what, I didn't have the confidence, and I didn't want the responsibility of doing a Kickstarter where people did these pledges, and then we just have no idea how the future was rolling, and whether we would be able to deliver on anything timely. And I would hate to like alienate all the fans in one fell swoop because they pitched in for a pledge and we're not delivering a record, you know? So I said, well, what if we could give them something tangible, you know, like, and so we had some wayward songs that never really got to see the light of day, and as well as we felt like there was a lot of songs on both of those records, you know, it had some cherry picked songs of stuff that we felt was our best foot forward. And so I connected with a guy in Pennsylvania who's a Grammy Award winning like mastering engineer, and we just really struck up a friendship, and he put a lot of love into remastering this from the original masters, the original mixes, and mastered it for vinyl. And I know some people think like, oh, well, why didn't you do it on CD, or why didn't, you know, it's not digital and it's not a superior format. And I look at it like, well, first off, for younger folks, music is totally disposable. You can hit skip, you can hit delete, you can hit next, and if it doesn't get your attention right away, that's it. But a record has like some intentionality to it. You gotta like, it brings listening back, and you set it down and you listen, and the way it's mastered, the way the bottom end has to be dealt with when it comes to mastering for vinyl, it's kind of like having a great full color photo and then saying, you know what, this looks so good in black and white, you know. And I feel like we've got to hear these songs in this like timeless black and white mode with this collection. So Violent Whispers, the title is a line from the song Seaside. And as we didn't know what to call it actually, and it wasn't until we were cruising. I went up to Indiana, all quarantine style, and hung out with Wil in the boonies, and then Wil had some photo shoots that he had been working on and with, and then that image really struck me, and so we got together on it, and we took that lovely girl. Kaylee, I'm saying the name wrong. Kaylee.
Yeah.
Kaylee Williams, and then also a girl named Chai who did like. So that whole shoot was inspired, I found out from Wil, from that lovely, like, beautiful little neck piece that's on her with the pearls and stuff. It's this really ornate thing that was handcrafted. And so the girl who designed that and also did the designing for that shoot really kind of revolved the shoot around that centerpiece. But and so then we took her eyes out, and it made for this haunting but really beautiful set of images. And I said, oh man, when she had her hand up to the throat, and then it just all came together really organically. It was really inspired, and it just made sense to call it Violent Whispers. I was thinking about how some people put because it's not a greatest hits, because we know that's not true, right? So and I didn't want to call it like near misses, and so I was trying to think about, I've seen some collections where people name it like a line from one of the songs, and then these art inspired the title and vice versa. Like it all just came together. It just felt like it was all meant for each other.
So I looked at the back of it and see you've made, is that correct, 500 copies?
So yeah, there's only 500 of that edition made, which has the double white smoke vinyl. And so for vinyl nerds, it's hand numbered. It's just that run is pressed like that, and you can't see it really well. We were hoping it was going to pop a little bit more, but if you look in the light, the silver of the Violent Whispers of the text on the cover is actually a spot ink silver on it. So there's little things about it. Yeah.
Wow. I actually haven't opened it up yet. I thought it was black. That's cool.
Yeah, so when we go to press more, they won't be this color, and they won't have the numbering on it.
That's awesome. I love that. And so what are your plans for the future?
We are working on new music. We have we have some songs that are.
We have one almost completely done song. Almost.
So you could maybe release a single?
For months. And then we have a lot of started like
this is a first though, because it's always been like I wrote something and then like there wasn't never like songs to choose from.
We have a lot of songs.
We have a lot of like ideas now that have pared things down.
So on the show, we're going to be showing one of your music videos. What song have you chosen to have?
Oh, I think we were talking about Huntress, yeah?
Huntress, okay. So tell us about this track that we're about to watch.
Huntress is a really cool track, and I'll send you have this image of the original lyrics on it, and it just went through so many phases, but
it was originally called
Vampire, yeah. And but the idea was just like this. There's definitely two characters singing, right? And I think at first listen you can sit there and think that, oh, this is about a girl who's troubled, she's like she's out to get you, take you down kind of thing. But when you listen harder, you realize that this is we've all been in bad relationships, and if you think about like, have you ever maybe been the bad part of the relationship? Have you ever been able to look back or maybe put yourself in the shoes of somebody who was like, you know what, I was the person who was, or I know that I'm broken right now, and I'm trying and I'm spreading it around, and so even with her character, like it's not this slutty vampire, so to speak. You know, it sound. We were teasing Chrissy's like, do you feel like the slutty vampire on that track? You know, she's. But it was more like this is a girl who's actually knows she does the wrong thing and doesn't like that about herself. And then you got the guy who's the chorus where I come in and it was just putting ourselves in different shoes of like, what if we were when you look back and like, it's not everyone else that's sometimes been wrong. Sometimes we've been the ones that have been wrong. Sometimes we've been the problem part of someone else's dynamic. So that's what the song's about.
Nice. Well, guys, you're in for a treat. We have Echoing Green's music video coming up called Huntress, and we just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. We've had Wil, Chrissy, and Joey. Thank you so much for being on our international special.
You're very welcome. And we wanted to give you some codes so that your viewers can
guys,
download the record.
The first 10 comments or 10 subscribes to this episode will receive the Echoing Green's latest digital album.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Guys, thank you so much for signing in from wherever you are, and it's just been such a pleasure to actually talk to someone I've enjoyed listening to over the years and been an inspiration to my own music. And I hope the people that have logged on to this show have enjoyed finding out more about you guys.
Well, it's a pleasure. The honor's ours.
Awesome. Let's kick it over to the video.
Bye.
Say goodbye.